About 6 years ago, or 5 years ago, something like that, we started seeing a couple of different stories in different newspapers about the fact that repressive governments were being propped up using equipment supplied by the West. They weren't in-depth stories, they weren't kind of very detailed at that point, but there were hints and snippets. We decided to start going to arms fairs and surveillance trade shows to try and understand exactly what was being sold, who was selling it, where they were selling it to, how it was being used, how this worked. What we found out completely shocked us. This was not an area that anybody had looked at in any great detail. We didn't really understand how it was that these other governments were acquiring this technology. The thought process hadn't been kind of fully put together. And so we found capabilities being sold that we were surprised if law enforcement here would have had. We saw the development of intrusion tools by British companies like Gamma, and who sell a product called FinFisher, and an Italian company called Hacking Team, with marketing videos, with 3D animation, polished to a level that we hadn't previously imagined. We knew that states would be considering this kind of spying, this kind of method, but it was a real shock to all of us to see that this was so far along this production line, and that states had been purchasing it, and that it was available to the highest bidder.
FinFisher is malicious software or malware. Essentially how it works is that an operator will send that malware disguised as something else, so as an attachment to an email or as an update to iTunes, and the individual who's being targeted will download the email attachment or update their iTunes, unaware that what in fact they're downloading is malware. And then once downloaded, FinFisher gives extraordinary access to the operator, so they can see everything on the computer, they can take control of the computer, so open all documents, they can see all correspondence coming in, they can read all emails, they can even impersonate an individual, so send emails or send Facebook messages in the name of the person whose computer it is. The user of the malware can even remotely turn on the computer microphone and camera, and so see and hear everything in the vicinity of the computer. So yeah, it's quite extraordinary level of access.
I mean, I was somewhat aware after the first WikiLeaks spy files about the this surveillance industry, specifically about malware, which I'm particularly interested in from a technical perspective. Morgan and Bill and the other guys at the Citizen Lab got in contact with someone who got targeted. They were doing already a lot of research on use of malware and spyware against journalists and dissidents. We started researching more into the use on a global scale, not necessarily specific attacks, but trying to get a larger picture of what is the nature of this market, what is the nature of these companies. And we found some ways to do that pretty cleverly. So we found ways to scan the whole internet. So we were doing that for months. We were just scanning every single computer on the internet that is accessible on the internet. Tried to communicate with it, pretending to be a FinSpy malware, and see if we get a response back. And if the response back would speak the FinSpy language, then we would know that it's actually a FinSpy infrastructure. And that led us to find a bunch of installations in a lot of other places, like tens of countries. Some of them more consuming than others. Obviously Bahrain, UAE, Oman, Qatar, Ethiopia, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, Indonesia, Malaysia, Australia, all over the place. They left some strings and some code in the malware, and at some point we found that there was some specific string saying FinSpy v4 version 4, and that kind of triggered something, because we remember, okay, it's FinSpy thing, we've already seen that before. Oh yeah, it's in the spy files, look at that. And so that was easy. It was like trivial to understand what it was, right? Once you have the name of the malware in the malware, then it doesn't get easier than that.
We started focusing on Gamma. because we knew that they'd sold or attempted to sell their equipment to the Egyptian government. Copies of files for tender documents and invoice documents for demo products had been found in Mubarak's state security team, where activists had gone in and managed to obtain them and find out. So we knew that this was the company that was in the business of selling to anyone who would want it.